Good afternoon and welcome to the MeetUp OnAir webcast brought to you by Core BTS. Today's presenter is Lance Cunningham, Collaboration Architect at Core. In this technology roadmap event, you'll learn how to take advantage of the new collaborative experience on virtually any device, anytime, anywhere. A couple of quick logistical items before we begin. First, you'll notice a chat feature on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. We'll be taking your comments and questions throughout the webinar, and we'll answer them throughout the presentation. Just to the right of that, you'll notice a scheduling module. Please feel free to use this to schedule a more in-depth conversation with a Core BTS representative. As a thank you for taking this next step, you'll receive an additional gift card which will be sent to you following your meeting. So with that, let's get started with the program.
Hello everyone, Lance Cunningham here, Collaboration Architect for Core BTS as introduced. And so as mentioned, we're going to talk about collaboration technology today and how to leverage it in your organization in the most effective way possible. We're going to talk about a few different things such as the current trends around collaboration as well as looking at the business landscape, right? And figure out how we map collaboration technologies that exist today into those business use cases. We'll talk about some specific use cases and some success stories that Core BTS has had with our partners. And at the end, we'll talk about enablement and how we make sure that we leverage and maximize our investment in the collaboration technologies in very specific and unique ways that are tailored to your organization. So I'm just going to start it off here with a little quote here about the title of the quote is "Not Your Father's Collaboration." What it says here is, today we're starting to realize that the real promise in collaboration technologies lies in supporting new ways of working and interacting that simply were not possible or feasible through traditional means. And that's a shift with huge implications for corporations, and I'll expand on that, organizations, schools, etc. And that's a lot of the focus that we're going to talk about, is how there's been a paradigm shift in the way we work and interact with each other, and how the evolution of collaboration technologies is in sync with that, and how we can use them in our day-to-day work. So I'm going to talk about a few trends first, as I mentioned, some statistics and some overall kind of trends. And so one of the biggest things that we see going on today is the concept of today's dispersed workforce. It used to be that people went to a single place and a business had a single location, but today we know that's not the case, right? Organizations, even schools, have multiple locations, and people at all those locations need to be able to work together. So here's a couple of statistics from Cisco that provided here. 90% of workers work outside the corporate headquarters, right? So that's a big shift from where it used to be in the past, where it used to be the exact opposite, right? Where 90% of the people worked in the corporate headquarters. As well as 52% of companies are providing some level of remote working options. Now, besides just being at branch offices, now you also have a large amount of the workforce that is working from home, working in the field, etc., and no longer in the the cube or the office on a regular basis, and the implications that can have for communicating and collaborating with the rest of the teams. So a few more statistics here. This, from a slide perspective, is a bit of an eye chart, but I'm going to read through it. So a little statistic here about increased mobility, that 34% of the global workforce will be mobile information workers by 2012. So obviously this is a little older statistic, but what we're seeing is that has actually surpassed that. A lot of these estimates that we see for the future around mobility, video use, and technology on the demands on the network tend to even exceed predictions. And then cross-organizational teaming, 62% of employees regularly need to collaborate with people in different time zones and geography, right? And, there's been technology in the past, whether it's from the phone or to web conferencing, etc., that have enabled that, but now we're entering a whole new realm of collaboration technology enablement that can make that distance-enabled collaboration much more meaningful, impactful, and make it more feel like you're working with people that are in the same office. Information overload. Knowledge workers spend between 15 and 30% of their time searching for information. And these searches are successful less than 50% of the time. Just think about the amount of time that we waste just looking for information and trying to find the information that we need to do their jobs, and how we can use things like social technologies to make that easier and to reduce that time spent looking for information. We'll talk about that a little bit more later as well. The proliferation of video. Large enterprises are experiencing an average growth rate of 70% per year in video traffic on their networks. There's been another statistic that gets mentioned a lot, that by 2014, 90% of internet traffic will be video. And that seems to be growing even faster and faster. And those statistics continue to get updated because video traffic just continues to explode. Not only from a video consumption perspective, people watching Netflix and things like that, but also from a real-time collaboration perspective, video conferencing, telepresence, web conferencing with video enabled, etc. Social software at work. 50% of workers use social media for business purposes at least once per week, but 15% of them use a consumer tool instead of a corporate sponsored tool, right? And that is basically because of a lack of tools that are given to them to do their job in a social context. And so they're just looking out and grabbing whatever tool they can use, and there are some pros and cons to that, right? Cons, of course, being that there are some risks involved with grabbing and using whatever tool that you can find. And so we'll talk a little bit more about how you can have a little bit more control and focus around your social strategy a little bit later as well. And new models for customer care. Millennials, predominantly 50 to 70%, expect and prefer to use online approaches to customer service and basic transactions compared with traditional methods. And so just I want to make sure that everyone knows what a millennial is, but in essence, think of someone in their 20s, right? Someone in their 20s is a millennial. And the main concept of being a millennial is that you grew up using technology, right? You're young enough to not even know what it was like not to have a computer, right? Not to know what it's like not to have access to the internet and be able to use all of these tools and different ways of communicating. And so that mindset that comes along with being part of that generation means that they expect to be able to do these things. And we'll talk a little bit more as we go along here about the impact of that, of a millennial, for example, coming into a workplace and then feeling like their hands are tied to be able to use the type of communication tools that they're used to, and not being able to do that in the workplace. Okay? Okay, so today's collaboration technology. So this is a slide I've put together to kind of encompass what collaboration technology looks like today. You maybe heard the terms in the past of unified communication, or simply, voice over IP and voicemail, those sorts of things. And what this is meant to represent is that collaboration technology has become so much more than that, right? It's from traditional voice to mobility and presence, being able to do phone and web conferencing and even video conferencing on mobile devices, integrated with instant messaging, integrated with our desktop applications, whether that's Microsoft or Google apps or something else, right? And having our communication tools deeply integrated into those productivity tools. To web conferencing, whether that's WebEx or other web conferencing tools, to telepresence and video conferencing, all the way from immersive telepresence to multi-purpose and audio-video integrated video conferencing. And now a new term called pervasive conferencing that brings video conferencing and telepresence and web conferencing and voice all together, where it doesn't matter what technology you have available to you, that you can join a conference and people can be on WebEx and people can be on telepresence and people can be on a voice, a phone endpoint, all at the same time participating in the same meeting in a seamless fashion, and making it easy to create that session so anyone can just go to a website and create a meeting and send out invites and people just join from the device that's available to them. That's relatively new in the collaboration platform, where before we had these basically silos between technologies. So I'll talk more about that in a minute, the de-siloing, if you will, of collaboration technology. As well as digital media, which is a relatively new entrant into this collaboration technology concept. So I have here listed Cisco's Capture, Transform, Share solution, digital signage, streaming video, and even physical security video, and wrapping that into a collaboration platform so you can create digital media in easy ways, record telepresence meetings, record WebEx meetings, and consume that video in an easy to use manner, as well as incorporate physical security video. You know, the ability to have a video desktop phone and simply dial an extension and pull up a physical security video camera feed right there on your phone to see what's going on in the parking lot or what have you, it can be a very powerful thing. And lastly, and we're going to spend a fair amount of time on this later with Kevin Kaiser, our marketing director, who I'll introduce in a little bit, around social technologies. You know, the explosion of social networking with Facebook and Twitter and all those sorts of things. You know, I've created this social technology paradigm shift where we're consuming. We're on it every day, you know, like the statistic earlier of how many people are on social networking every single day, even during their work. And now organizations have begun to embrace that and using social technology to deeper connect with their customers and their stakeholders. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that, about how social media has come into the environment a little bit later. Down the bottom, the nuts and bolts of things, the infrastructure, cloud services, licensing, management, monitoring, reporting, all this stuff on the back end that needs to be there and well configured and designed to make sure that the seamless collaboration happens across each of these areas. So I mentioned a bit earlier, right? True collaboration versus unified communication. In the past, unified communication was all about the voice stuff, right? The phone, the voicemail, maybe entering in a little bit into video, and integration into email. But then we had this whole other thing of video conferencing and telepresence technology that was kind of its own beast. And then we could even tack on web conferencing as a whole nother silo here. But we need to break those down, and that's really finally happening from a technology perspective, as I mentioned earlier, where you can create conferences with the right collaboration platform where people just join a meeting with the device that they have. And if they have video enabled in it, great. They see and receive video. If they join from their voice, you know, maybe they only participate from an audio. But the thing is everybody joins the same way and everybody joins the same conference. We don't have to worry about, okay, we're going to have a telepresence meeting. Everybody find a telepresence room. No, we just have a meeting and people join together and they collaborate and share information. So we need to, knocking down those silos does, however, create a bit of complexity because you have all of these tools, right? Again, voice, video, even blogs, instant messaging, all these things need to work together in some way, and they all have varying contexts as to which they're used with the end user, right? So here we have, you know, different collaboration tools from left to right, from more basic from the tech side, from email and documents and wikis and that sort of thing, over to voice and video with streaming video and telepresence on the far right. And that can be anywhere from one to many individuals. You know, one person simply making a video recording or sending an email to someone else, to two people collaborating at the same time on a phone call or a video phone call, to many, right? So you get 5 to 10 people working together as a collaborative group in a conferencing technology, or a webcast, you know, kind of like we're doing today, where we have, let's see, we have 85 viewers right now who are watching this, and it's a relatively passive experience for most of you right now, even though you're going to be able to interact with chat and some polls here, but we're doing more of a one-to-many situation. And the idea here is to create a collaboration platform so that anyone in your organization that needs to collaborate can pick the appropriate tool for the context without having to think too much about how they go about doing that, right? Making it easy enough so they just simply do the task that they need to accomplish and the technology simply blends into the background, okay? But so we talked a bit about technology so far, but collaboration is much more than that, right? So unified communications to some degree was still a lot about the technology. But what I argue is when you move into a collaboration focus, it's more about the people, right? So as I just said, when you focus on the people and you focus on the business interactions and the people interactions and the collaboration that needs to happen, the technology needs to be there to support it, but it shouldn't be the focus, okay? So I have a quote here from Greg Simpson, the Chief Technology Officer of GE. And this is a quote pulling from a book called The Collaboration Imperative, which I'll talk a bit more about later. A really insightful book about how you go about creating a collaboration strategy within an organization. But Greg is quoted here saying that collaboration has to be a holistic effort that includes people and processes as well as technology, right? Because if you don't bring in that people and processes and you simply focus on the technology, what we tend to see is a lack of enablement and a lack of utilization of the technology because it's not properly applied to what the people do day in and day out. And we will talk more about that later. So back to the millennials a bit as well, that it has to be flexible. Right. And so while millennials are used to using all these different types of technologies, right, whether it's phone or email or instant messaging, and they all have their personal preferences as to which technology to use. So simply deploying a collaboration technology that simply focuses on one technology type, like video chat or instant messaging response, simply isn't good enough anymore. So that's what this slide is meant to represent. So let's take it in a telemedicine, a healthcare perspective. That, as you see here, 19% of people prefer a video chat consultation with a doctor. 20% prefer an online consultation via instant message with a doctor. 21% prefer an email consultation with a doctor. 23% prefer a telephone consultation with a doctor. And 20% prefer a text message consultation with a doctor. So there's no clear winner, right? You have 5 different ways that you could possibly enable a patient to interact with a doctor. And 1 out of 5, every single person in a group of 5 people is going to have a different method that they're going to prefer to contact that doctor. So what is the best case scenario is to not force the patient into the method that they have to use, but to try and give them as many flexible options as possible so they can communicate with you in the most comfortable way that for them, right? Because you make it comfortable and you make it easy for them, it's only going to increase that communication possibility. So I mentioned this a bit earlier about the impact of social, and I'm going to introduce my good friend Kevin. Kevin Kaiser is our Director of Marketing for Core BTS.
Hello, Lance.
Hello, Kevin.
Thanks for having me today.
So Kevin's joining us from our Madison office. I'm here in my Minneapolis Core BTS office. And so, Kevin, what can you tell me about the evolution of collaboration technology in the realm of social and the impact that that's having and is going to have?
Well, you set us up nicely for this conversation, Lance. And at the title here, we have social is everything. And it seems like people are just throwing the word social onto the beginning of all of those words on the right. It could be media, it could be networking, it could be games, commerce, whatever. And really what you outlined is that we're all trying to, as organizations, deliver an experience to the customer. And this quote on the left here really outlines that experiences are as distinct from services as services are from goods. And you could even argue that there's such a huge jump to be able to offer those experiences. And that's ultimately what the tool sets are allowing us to do. The tools are evolving to the point where we can now create those engaging experiences either for our internal teams or for our external teams. And really that's what these social technologies allow us to do.
Very good. So let's expand on that a little bit, and let's take that previous quote from Greg Simpson about combining people, process, and technology, and how social technology fits into that, and how it might change that.
Right. And when we look at social in collaboration, it's really not necessarily a hierarchical relationship. It's a symbiotic relationship where you have the people, the processes, and the technology. And what's been happening is because of the technologies, there's this overlay of content that's taking place. So really, we're all, in essence, becoming content publishers. We reach into our own individual experiences, and we, through the evolution of the tools, first it was email. We've been able to create nice little emails and send them out to people. And then there was the blog, and we've been able to write blogs and create these little communities. And then eventually that morphed into Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. So now we have even more media that captures even more components, but it's all, in essence, ways for us to communicate our content. It's been a pretty interesting evolution, and when you look at the tools themselves, particularly the out-of-the-box social technologies, certain components are becoming standard. So, for example, when we're all on an e-commerce site, it will tell you people that viewed this also viewed this. And now with the internal networks for social networks and document sharing, if we turn that example internally, people that viewed this document also viewed this document. So it makes it much easier for folks to find content internally that others have produced and you might not even know exists.
Right, and it just really minimizes that amount of information overload and having to go out and spend time of where did I leave that document and that sort of thing, and making it a more inclusive with the peers and a more organized structural component when you bring in that social element, right?
Right, and something you mentioned earlier, going back to what the technologies allow us to do, you mentioned kind of this controlled environment and how the stat you use 57% of people are using social media within work, but 15% are only using a corporate issued tool. And there's a huge gap there. And we can talk about the loss of control and the security risk, but also the loss of productivity because we're not leveraging the data that we're producing and the data that's coming in. So all of that information is really sitting out there, and we're not plugging them into maybe our CRM or our other internal tools to be able to find out more information about our end customer and ultimately hopefully make us some more money through the process.
Absolutely. So I think we'll talk a little bit more about how we've integrated social technologies here at Core BTS a little bit later when we talk about some of these specific use cases, but I think that was a great introduction. Thank you very much, Kevin. So we just threw a lot at you, right, about basically expanded the concept of what collaboration is into all these different technologies. And it can be a little overwhelming, right? So here's this thing, the collaboration paradox. Like, there's so much there now that you need to think of, like in the mention that I slide, between the one to many and the text to rich media. Where do you find the right tools that are appropriate for your organization, and how do you find that connection between the business and the technology? So that's what we're going to talk about next is these 6 important questions for clarity around this. And Core BTS's overall focus, if you will, is this concept of envision, execute, enable, right? And so envisioning what the future state of our business, as well as what your business and your organization can and should or will become. And then moving that into execute, looking at what technologies can we map to that, about that future state. What do you want people to be able to do? How do you want to improve efficiency? And what technologies can we map to that to make that possible? And lastly, enable. How do we make sure that the culture is ready for it? How do we make sure that the users are enabled and know that these tools are out there, and how to use them so that you actually realize the vision that you set initially. So a few questions here is, where do you want to be, right? So looking out 3-5 years, like where do you want the organization to be from a collaboration perspective? And do you know what's possible, right? We probably just threw a few things at you that you maybe hadn't thought of as from a collaboration portfolio, whether that's, having everybody from voice, web conferencing, and telepresence all together in one meeting, or recording that meeting and be able to publish the video file like we're doing here via live streaming webcast as well. All those kinds of things. Like, sometimes you need to be able to know what's possible in order to figure out where you want to be, right? And so that's an encouraging a follow-up that I would encourage some of you to do, that if this is resonating with you and hitting home, that we can follow up and do a what's possible and where do you want to be discussion, so we can start envisioning how we can use collaboration technologies to improve your business and or organization. But then once you decide where you want to be, you have to look at where are you now, right? Where are you right now, and what current technology, what current culture environment do you have in your business? Because if you don't look at those two things, where you want to be and where you are now, how are you going to get there, right? And so it's identifying the gaps between where you are right now, both from a technology, business processes, as well as culture perspective, and how do you get there. And then, of course, once you define where you are now, what is the next step to start heading in that direction? Because it's an evolution, right? No one's going to move from a silo technology perspective into a full collaboration environment overnight, right? We need to create a roadmap together to get from today to the future state. And some of that's going to be in phases, and some of it can be done right away. But what is the next step, and make a plan? And how can Core BTS help? We're going to be talking quite a bit about that as to what Core BTS does different in the collaboration market space to help navigate this complexity and maximize the investment and return of heading down a collaboration platform direction. So one of the big things that we do is business analysis, right? Which is part of this whole envision phase. And Kevin, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the impact that you've seen that this business analysis has had on the focus or the direction of an organization headed down a collaboration technology path?
Sure. It's one of my more, I guess, entertaining or fun conversations to have, because it really focuses on the end goal of the company. And pulling up some specific examples of customer conversations, one of my favorites is when the customer said, when we first sat down, our box was this big. And after going through this type of discussion and analysis, where, and this happened to be a higher education institution, where we talked to both the chancellor and the leaders, the deans of the different colleges, the students, the professors, and understand all of their different perspectives, then the box all of a sudden grew to be this big, and the outcomes, the potential of the technology and how we use them really scaled, which was really neat to see. And those types of examples, growing that box, can be pointed in any industry or business department. And really that's what's fun for us doing this today is we're inside of the marketing department, and we're able to scale out this technology that we would typically use for our sales or internal reporting and things.
Yeah, very good. And so just to on top of that, one of the things that I see a lot is technology initiatives tend in the past to come from one of two places. One is, of course, the IT group, right? The IT group comes to a technology solution company like ours and says, I want to implement technology X, right? And it's typically a very narrow focus, and there's not a whole lot of engagement on the business side, right? They basically heard, well, I heard we need an instant messaging platform. So what do you got from an instant messaging platform? What does it cost? What does it cost to implement, et cetera, right? But without taking into a bigger picture of how does that technology map to the use cases? How are people going to use it inside the business? The opposite is the business coming directly to a technology provider like us with purely that use case without a thought as to how it fits into the technology back end, right? And what's really important is that both of those pieces are done simultaneous and in concert with each other. And that's where we've had a lot of success, is basically being that catalyst between the business and the technology group, right? And so that we make sure that the plan that is going to be implemented matches the business objectives and the processes and the culture and stuff that's in place, as well as from a technology perspective, make sure that we're maximizing current investment into technology, as well as figure out how the new technology fits into that environment as well, right? Very good. So again, bringing it back to this collaboration technology portfolio, it's really about mapping those things together. And so one of the things we're going to get into next is some success stories in various markets. We're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about retail and manufacturing, some legal, finance, and insurance areas, healthcare, and what Core BTS has done from a business-to-business engagement perspective. So, Kevin, should we start with education?
I think we can do that.
Sure.
And you've talked to a number of different both K-12 school districts, colleges, universities. So tell me about a little where these leading edge organizations are going and why they're choosing the different solutions that they're ultimately implementing.
Sure. So a few years ago, we started with some various education institutions in Minnesota, both in K-12 as well as higher ed, that wanted to do something better and different from a video perspective, about doing distance education over video. And we had the unique, the fortunate connection of being able to work with some pretty high level people in the organization, so superintendents and deans and that sort of thing, and focusing on, well, what do you want to accomplish from an educational perspective? And the biggest thing that they wanted was between various sites, they wanted the experience to be the exact same no matter where the student is located. So if they're at high school X or college Y, and wherever the teacher was didn't matter. They wanted the highest quality experience, whether they're in person or remote, and they simply were not getting that today. So we focused on immersive telepresence, and now we are growing to over 20 immersive telepresence systems in education in Minnesota, and really just bringing that full circle, and it's really being embraced as a paradigm shift in distance education in Minnesota, and will continue to grow. It's a pretty exciting thing. And then again, just focusing on what were the pain points and what do they need to do from a business perspective, as well as then we worked with the technology, because there's various organizations in an educational environment that you need to pull together, right? And looking at leveraging the state wide area network and the IT staff at the various schools to work in concert with each other, because it wasn't, all these organizations wouldn't be able to work together if they did not also work together from a technology perspective.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is a superintendent said, whenever we walk into these types of rooms with this technology and sit down, new ideas come to us. And now they're end up connecting with businesses for in-person interviews with candidates from universities, and they're connecting with the other schools in their district. It's cool to see that evolution and how the people are using the tools.
Yeah, and so that's a good segue into what we're doing in some retail and manufacturing spaces. Customers of ours are using collaboration technology to engage with their suppliers and their partners in their business, as well as across their branch offices. But just like you said, also using it for interviews, right? They might have a candidate they want to interview that's across country, but they save themselves a significant amount of money by conducting the video over telepresence, the interview over telepresence, and still getting that good feeling, right? That personal connection, the facial expressions, the reactions that you would want in an in-person interview, right? So
right.
Let's talk a little bit about legal and the financial space.
Yeah, some of the great things that we've seen here is the streamlining of communication, particularly across larger insurance industry, for example, and when agents need to process claims. So being able to get out to those endpoints, right. And instead of taking photos, sending them back to this location to be processed, and then, I need a photo of something else, using mobile video to have that one-to-one conversation with the headquarters, streamline the claim to get it all said and done, which is really neat to see.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we get into that any device anywhere, right? So besides any technology anywhere, it's any device. So in this case, right, using an iPad and either WebEx or something like a telepresence client on an iPad, and being in that field and using 4G cellular to connect and have that real-time conversation instead of taking photos, going back, and then finding out you need to go back again, right? You can have that real-time communication and interaction and get what you need the first time, right?
Right, exactly.
How about healthcare? Telemedicine, of course, is a big buzzword. out there, and obviously collaboration technology is an important piece, right?
Absolutely. And from the customers that we have are using these tools in amazing ways. We showcased one at the end of last year who's using telepresence within that telemedicine concept, and they're even going outside of the box in connecting patients with the legal system if that patient has to speak with a judge or something of the sort. And the big thing that stood out within our conversation with them was tying all of the different units in the healthcare organization together. To your point, the different departments are kind of headed on these paths, and ultimately, a lot of times they don't communicate across. So marketing could be working on a mobility concept to help sales, and operations is using something else for customer service. So bringing these different units together to really find an organizational approach as opposed to the departmental approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So how about from what Core BTS has done around social technologies? Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes. So to that organizational approach mantra, we've really focused on connecting all the different technologies together. And our perspective is, one, we're an internal user. So I'm not quite a millennial. I'm outside of that, so I still remember what it was like without the internet or a computer. But we are the internal users, and what you've been hitting on is exactly, it resonates with me as that user experience. The second thing is we are the marketing department, so we're looking at what sales really needs to drive their business and what our customer ultimately wants and how they want to be communicated with. And back to that content piece, and being a publisher is really, really important. So what we've been trying to do is reach inside of our organization and find all of these great thought leaders, as well as inside of our manufacturers and our customers, to see how they're using the technology and finding those stories to create good content that we can publish out. And the social technologies, the tools, are excellent media that have evolved to allow us to do that. So being able to connect our social media, Facebook and Twitter, through Social Miner as an application, and then connecting Social Miner to our digital signs so that we can control, in a controlled manner, stream our tweets from the internet to our digital signs that are in all of our offices, and then have those different campaigns. So when people are in our office, they see what people are saying, or at least all the good stuff that we filter in about our organization that's in there. So that's one example of those. And then the other one I'll use is this. Knowing that we were going with telepresence for our whole organizational need to bring in remote experts, and then understanding how we could use it in a marketing setting to really communicate the great things that are going on, broadcast it live on the website, and then record that for future use. That's just an incredible use case within our department in tying the different technologies together.
Very good. Okay. That's great, Kevin. So I think at this point, in the interest of time, we're going to move on to the enablement topic. And I have John McComb here, who is our National Director of Managed Services. Say hello, John.
How are you doing this afternoon, everyone?
Doing good. So, I have an interesting. So one of the polls that we put up during the thing is, do you see ways and uses for collaboration to improve in your organization? And we had a couple options there, and overwhelmingly people say yes, but I'm not sure where to start, right? And so the number one piece there is, that's why we offer that business analysis engagement, is to come in and work with you and identify, what a good friend of mine, Dr. Ford, who works with Cisco, says, what is the flashpoint for implementation? What is the one area that you think you'll get the most bang for your buck initially? But moving beyond that, once you identify that, it's about user enablement, right? So you actually realize your investment, right? The return on your investment. And so can you talk a little bit about the importance of that user enablement and what Core BTS does to make sure that happens?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just making the tools accessible and the training around the tools, and really whether it's Core BTS or any other organization that is out there that's looking to implement different collaboration type technologies, is just making sure that people understand how they access them, how do they get to them, and really how to utilize them to the best of their needs inside that organization. We look at inside of our space of being able to take and where we have distributed offices with remote work staff, with remote sales staffs and remote pre-sales. And we utilize these technologies really to cut down on travel costs and really make ourselves more readily available to different people that are out in the organization, along with the client side as well, and being able to bring in, subject matter experts really at any point in time.
Yeah.
We can take in and bring those in and make them available.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said too, it's not all about just making sure they know how to use the tools. It's also making sure that we map the tools to the processes and how the organization actually functions as well, right? And so one of the other things that we see from an enablement perspective is a lot of these collaboration technologies, take for example like social and telepresence and those sort of things, are relatively new, and there's not a lot of skilled IT people out there that have a lot of experience with these tools, and so implementing them into an organization can be challenging due to a lack of resources. And so we see a trend towards the cloud in general, but also now a trend towards the cloud for collaboration as well. Can you talk a little bit about the impact of leveraging cloud technology such as hosted collaboration solutions minimizes that burden on the organization? And I think John is experiencing some technical difficulties. You there?
Could you say that again, Lance? You dropped out for a minute.
So just talk a little bit about how leveraging cloud technologies enables an organization to move quicker, say, for example, into collaboration strategy by leveraging resources outside of their company, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a lot of it comes down to, flexibility, agility, and stability inside of these, solutions. And, when we look at any of the kind of cloud type solutions around these pieces, we're looking at how do we take and reduce the time to roll out? How do we, reduce implementation times and make these solutions so that they're more readily available to, end users? But also, how do we make it more flexible so that we can take and not only push it out to the main organization, but also looking at the distributed workforce, so remote workers, remote offices, home office workers, and do it in a sense quickly deployed and quickly rolled out. It also kind of relates directly into the kind of financial piece of that, and we look at being able to roll out solutions quickly with limited or no upfront CapEx type costs to these types of solutions, but also long-term looking at administrative and maintenance type pieces where not only do we not have to have the equipment on site update and upkeep, but also from a resource standpoint, from an IT background, of not having to have those resources take the time to be able to do that. But then also looking at business continuity, disaster recovery, and looking at some of the disasters that have happened recently with Sandy and hurricanes and things, and being able to get these solutions out of your data center so that they're readily available, should something happen. So there's a lot of different reasons, and it's no different with collaboration than it is with some of the other technologies. It's why organizations are looking towards these hosted solutions. But at the end of the day, it's how do we take and quickly deploy? How do we make this very agile so that when we get at the devices that organizations want this to be available to, we can take and do that, be it iPads or Androids or telepresence, and really make that tool set out there so that users, regardless of, to kind of Lance's point before, regardless of how you want to use this technology and make it available, it's there for them without having to have the costly upfronts, the maintenance, keep everything tied to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also want to hit home, you think about Agile. being agile, with collaboration technology evolving as fast as it is, right? Like there's going to be a lot of updates and upgrades and that sort of thing over the next couple of years that is continuing to enable more and more user functionality. And on an on-premise environment, that takes staffing to not only stay on top of that, but keep applying those patches, providing updates to users and that sort of thing. And the nice thing about using a hosted collaboration model is a lot of that happens for you, right? It's scheduled and timed at specific intervals, but you don't have to plan for it, right? All that is done for you. You just simply get to reap the benefits of the new features and functionality not long after they're made available, right? So very good, John. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yep. Okay, so we're running down towards the end of our time, and I see we do have a few questions that have come up. So I'm just going to make a few more points here, and then cover some of the questions here. So again, back to the collaboration imperative, the book that I mentioned earlier that I had that quote from. I would encourage looking this up. It was very insightful to me, and I think it would be insightful to anyone who is thinking about enabling their organization with more collaboration tools. But again, collaboration cannot be deployed; it must be embraced. Right? It has to be part of the culture. It has to be part of the processes. And an interesting quote in there too is consensus can be the enemy of collaboration, right? A little bit of tension can be a good thing. That's how we all grow. Good ideas come from anywhere. The more voices, the better. So the more you enable the whole organization to contribute, the better. And so that's where things like social technologies come into play again, right? Is giving people that voice. And on that same note, companies that enable employees to interact more create more value. Right, more interaction equals more productivity and more value. And although collaboration is about decentralizing, it has to start at the top. There needs to be some leadership direction, again, so to decide where you want to go and make sure that it's being mapped to the business and all the way down through the organization. And if your collaboration strategy isn't working, your culture may be resistant, or your technology deployments are not aligned with the processes, right? Again, maybe simply implementing collaboration technology for collaboration technology's sake instead of using that analysis to make sure that you're choosing the right tool for the right context. And so that's the bulk of the presentation. So I see there's a few questions that have come in. Let's see, we have one from Corey here. It says, if we've already made a large investment in collaboration tools, how do we continue to gain the most from our initial investment? And so the short answer there is it depends on what your initial investment is in, right? And so, one of the big things is looking at that is again, what has your investment in the past been? What things are you capable of doing now? But what do you want to do in the future? And then finding, do you have technologies that you've invested in today that are underutilized because they have not been properly mapped to business processes, which we can do again through a business analysis engagement? Or what additional tools do we need to replace or add on to what you already have in order to make your current investment have a better return for you? Another question here says, we've implemented a BYOD strategy with our organization, and how might new video technologies impact our planning and consideration? So that's a great question. And so it's about making sure that you have a collaboration platform that can support multiple devices, right? So if you're going to use video technology, can you use the technology that you choose on an iPad? Can you use it on a laptop? Can you use it on a traditional video conferencing endpoint? And can you pull all that stuff together, right? That's very important. And how easy is it for a user to simply download an app and log in with it and with their work credentials and begin collaborating, right? So making sure that you find tools that map to that ease of use. And the Cisco portfolio that I work with a lot really has focused on that multiple technologies across multiple devices, and that bring your own device mentality, where you simply download an app from the App Store and log in and begin leveraging your corporation's investment in a secure and protected way as well. Let's see. We have another question. Are your collaboration solutions Cisco specific? No, absolutely not, right? So, Core BTS is also a Microsoft partner, as well as we leverage other technologies as well. it all depends on your environment, right? And so, there's also, we do integrations with Google collaboration technologies as well, right? So again, it's looking at your environment. I will personally say, as far as the deepest, richest, most collaborative experience across the multiple technologies, from voice to web conferencing to video to social, that the Cisco portfolio is the most seamless across all of those technologies, and but it can integrate into other things. So incorporating real-time video communication into other tools such as Salesforce, for example, if that's a CRM tool you use, and having instant messaging and voice and video capabilities built right into that is something that we're working towards as well with our various technology partners, whether it's Cisco or others. So good question there. Do we have any other questions? Or Kevin or John, any other comments you'd like to make?
I think that as a whole, we outlined the collaboration portfolio and everything that fits into it. One of my favorite sayings is know what you don't know. And then once you understand that, then you can kind of chart the path along the way. And one of my other favorite sayings is, if it's not broken, break it. So I guess today we outlined all of those types of pieces, is uncovering a lot of what's inside of or consider collaboration and social. And then we outlined, sometimes we have to tweak some things and pull in different departments, perhaps breaking the status quo to make sure that we're all on the right path to get to where we need to be.
Right. You remind me of another quote that I like a lot. That is, know the rules like a professional so you can break them like an artist. Right. And that has a lot to do with leveraging collaboration technology within an organization, is know what's possible and what you're capable of, and then, and fine tune it to your environment. And so the last slide I'm going to bring up here is Core BTS's model, again, around envision, execute, enable. Right. And so I encourage you all, if this rung true to you, and it sounds like, as I mentioned, a lot of you don't know where to start with this collaboration concept. And we can help you with that, right? And so another question that was asked is, in the area of collaboration technology, my organization is in various levels of utilization and deployment, right? Of overbought to underdeployed, which no one responded to, but I would argue that's probably not true. A lot of organizations that I work with, they have quite a bit of existing investment that is underutilized for its potential. 23% said a good balance. 44% is said they're at a loss as to where to begin and where to create a plan. And then there's 22% that is everybody is doing their own thing, right? So I look at that. That's basically 75% of you are saying that you need help creating a collaboration strategy for your organization, right? And so I encourage you to reach out to us, and we can schedule a discussion. We can walk through what's possible, and we can walk through what your business objectives are, and find a way to create a collaboration strategy for your organization that makes sense and will maximize the return on your investment.
All right, great. Thank you guys so much. It looks like that about does it for the program today. If you didn't have time to answer your question, or if you have more questions for a Core BTS representative, please do use that scheduling feature on the bottom right-hand side of your screen to schedule a follow-up conversation. Thanks again, Lance, Kevin, John, and thanks everybody for attending.
No problem. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.